Welcome to Ask the Funeral Director with Mike Voyajakis. Brought to you by Voyage Funeral Home and Crematorium. Now, here's your host, Mike Voyajakis.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Ask the Funeral Director. I'm Brad Wilder, your host, along with Mike Voyajakis tonight. We've got a lot to get to as we get into a show that's, well, I said special. What makes it so special? Well, coming up in just a couple of days, with the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region's 15-minute city is going to be addressed at the legislature outside to the largest group of people, hopefully, that we can find here in Manitoba. It's great to have everybody just signing in and coming on. We didn't even know we were going to do this. We're here tonight because we know we need to educate, we know we need to get the message out, and we know we need to stop this, and that's exactly why we're here. There's a lot to get to with Mike Voyajakis and our very special guest as well, one of the speakers who will be at the Ledge this weekend, all coming up right after a great word from our sponsor.
At the Cork and Flame, we're always cooking and ready with the finest for all our customers any time of day or night. From breakfast brunch to lunch and dinner, steak and seafood to ribs and more. The Cork and Flame Fine Dining. Always fresh, with fabulous desserts and a narration of the urban landscape, plus a passion for quality food. Eat, drink, chill. Cork and Flame, 3106 Portage Avenue. There's no hurry, so sit back and relax.
Welcome back. Well, Mike, we've got a big event coming up on Wednesday out at the legislature right here in Winnipeg. Lots to talk about.
I think we're confusing people tonight. People are going, is it Wednesday?
No, it's not Wednesday.
A very special edition of Ask the Funeral Director. And this is about the big rally that's taking place. Call it whatever you want. It's not at City Hall. It is at the Ledge, taking place at 1 o'clock. And we're hoping...
It's not even a protest, is it?
Not really a protest. You can call it what you want to call it. What we're doing is making it educational for people to come out and find out about...
And learn.
Find out what's going on and what the big commotion is all about. Because I'm hoping that we get thousands of people out there and we prove a point. And that point is people in numbers matter. And when you get people in large numbers, you have no choice but to listen. What's bothering me about this whole thing is we have a province that's in trouble. We have a province that's completely out of control as far as crime goes, as far as drugs go, as far as all kinds of things that the city's witnessing right now as we're living through it. It's scary to be on the streets of Winnipeg right now, especially when you go out at night. If you can realize 15 minutes after a Winnipeg Jets game, when downtown is full, downtown is empty 15 minutes after the game, that tells you we have a problem in the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba. They're just doing episodes on crime everywhere now because the crime is so bad, and so many people are getting hurt just walking down the street, minding their own business. We got a catch and release system through the court system that's completely broken.
You know how I can prove that?
Yeah.
That poor guy that got beat up and
with a
machete.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot more that's going on in the background that people don't even know about.
That's right.
But many are getting hurt. Many are afraid to walk in the streets. So what bothers me is, why are we not fixing a city that's broken, a province that's broken? Why aren't we working on the infrastructure we have now? Why can't we make this a viable, beautiful place to live?
Can you imagine what we would do with $50 million if somebody handed it to us and said, here, go to town and do the right thing?
I could do a lot in this city for $50 million.
And it wouldn't be 15-minute city lockdown, would it?
No, 15-minute city lockdowns are terrible. You know, this is the reason we're fighting so hard about this is it's because of your kids.
It is.
And your grandkids
100%.
And their futures. And if we don't stand up now and make a difference, it's like everything else that happens in this world. They're passing a bill. Nobody says anything about it. They pass the bill. Then you go, oh, my God, I can't believe they did that. That's right. Because we don't take action. This time we are taking action, and we're letting people know that we're not satisfied with what's going on. We don't want this change to happen.
Oh, but Mike, it's just urban planning.
It's just urban planning.
We're making things better for society.
I talked to a lady the other day, actually.
The environment's going to be perfect now.
Perfect.
Though we're saving the whales, the polar bears, and everything all in one bang.
This lady talked to me the other day, and she goes, I can't believe that you're fighting urban planning.
Urban planning, yeah. Climate change, the crap that they're dumping on our heads, not to mention a bunch of other things. This is Ask the Funeral Director. I'm almost doing Wake Up Canada News here. I'm sorry.
But a lot of people are upset about this. Clearly, I mean, look what happened in Niverville, and now a few of the people around town have pulled out. Can you imagine if they open up the urban planning as they do, and they take over St. Andrews, and East St. Paul, and West St. Paul, and they take over Henley and Steinbach and all these places? Can you imagine the crime in your area, folks? Never mind the 10 houses that you'll have to have on top of your house. Never mind green space that we used to have when we were young and we would go out and play, because they're wanting to take that away from us.
Going to the lake, going to the beach, going camping, having a motorbike track in the middle of a field. You won't be able to do any of this stuff
look at the bright
anymore,
side
is
of
what they're
things,
saying.
Brad. We can all get electric cars, and they can all blow up at the same time.
They don't even want us to have electric cars, because at the end of the day, they want us all taking an electric car that you can rent over at the commercial zone of your 15-minute area. You can jump in your electric vehicle, take it for your 12 minutes down the road, park it again, get off and start walking again. Who's going to walk in minus 35-degree weather? I mean, these guys have got to give their heads a shake. It ain't going to work.
Think about the bus lanes.
It ain't going to work.
We live in Winnipeg. A majority of the weather here is cold, snowy, icy, and you're not going to get the bikes out that you think you're going to get on these huge bike paths that you're building for only 4 months of the year.
Absolutely. Exactly. 3 months of the year.
How many bike deaths have we had alone? I'd like to get the stats on that, where people are riding their bikes and getting hit by cars left and right.
I saw an article, I think it was the Winnipeg Sun recently, which is doing some great journalism, by the way. Kevin Klein and his crew, Marty Gold is over there as well. But they were talking about incidents of cars and bikes and just pedestrians and movement throughout the city. And there's a lot of issues with just Manitobans in general who like to take out guys on bikes.
On the bright side of things, we have a meeting taking place in Brandon tonight.
It's packed.
It's
wall
packed,
to wall.
Wall to wall. We have somebody there reporting for us, but we're trying to get Pierre on. And he hasn't responded to us yet, but he's going to come on live from Brandon for us. It's good to see that people are waking up. I mean, look, let's face it. A majority of the people are still asleep. A majority of the people don't have a clue what's going on. When I talked to Kevin and I were talking the other day online, but a majority of people in St. Andrews, all my neighbors, don't have a clue about what's going on, what's taking place, because they're too busy with their own lives.
Right.
And one of my neighbors phoned me the other day and goes, "Hey, what are you talking about? What's this thing you have online about our children and their futures?" And when I told him about it, he said,
it was all F-bombs, eh?
I wasn't too happy about that. So until we stand up together and make a difference, this is going to keep on being the same old, same old. So I'm glad that people are taking notice. And if you have a friend who's kind of clued out on what's going on and says, "Oh, no, this is another conspiracy theorist. You guys don't know what you're talking about," bring your friend out to the ledge on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It is going to be a great time.
We haven't been just talking about this over the last few days or even a couple of weeks since we heard about the event that was held at Polo Park with the Winnipeg Metropolitan region. We've been talking about this for years. I've known about this for years. Jesse Ventura was the first one to expose it on a show that he produced called Conspiracy Theory. Yes, it was all a conspiracy theory then, but he had all the proof to back it, and he went everywhere to get the information and show that proof. I believed what was happening, and now I'm seeing it live out from what he said in 1997.
Think about this. If you think we're on top of the game now, you could be assured there's going to be another lockdown coming our way.
Well, absolutely.
And this lockdown is going to try and shut us all up. It's going to try and keep us away from our families. It's going to do the same old thing. Stay away from your mom, your dad, your grandma. You're going to get them sick. You can't go shopping. You can't do this. You can't do that.
If I would have known you were coming longer than an hour ago, I would have made sure I had a Chiquita for you.
CP's on the verge of going on strike. There's going to be food shortages everywhere. If there's one thing I would recommend is probably fill up your house.
Hey, leave the toilet paper
for Brad. If I was you folks out there, I'd make sure that you have lots of stuff in your house, because I got a funny feeling in the near future you're not going to find too much.
If the rail lines are down, things are going to get
the railways are down, the trucks are down, and everything else is down. So everything's going to get weak. So we need to be prepared to get into the fight of our lives. You could either sit on the couch and be a couch potato, or you could get up and make a difference. It should start this Wednesday, where you leave work, you do what you want, bring your kids out so they can have fun, so they know that we're fighting for them, so they know we're trying to make a difference for their lives, so they can have the freedom we had when we were young. Want to bring our guest on?
I think we should. I think it would be good.
While you're doing that, I'm going to see if I can say hi to a few people as you're bringing them on. Maybe you can see if Kevin is on with us tonight. Chuck? Wednesday already, Patricia. Pete the Greek. Oh, Pete the Greek's my brother. And since we got Carl on right now, I just want to tell you, Pete the Greek runs North Main Trucking.
Oh, yeah.
And he needs truck drivers.
Oh, there you go.
If there's anybody out there who's looking for a job, Pete the Greek, my brother from North Main Trucking, is looking for drivers and he needs lots of them. People are saying they can't find work. And Carl would know about this being in a truck himself. He's got 5 or 10 trucks sitting in his yard every day because he just can't find guys to come to work. So if you want a part-time job or a full-time job, phone my brother Pete up at North Main Trucking and he'll get you hooked up and you can get into a truck and start working.
Perfect. Carl Krebs with us tonight from Things That Matter. Carl, great show. Love to have you on the show tonight. It's great to be here with you, and there's lots to get to. We're getting ready for the big Winnipeg Metropolitan Region 15-minute City Talk coming up at the Ledge on Wednesday at 1 p.m. We invited you because, we know you're a big advocate of everything that's been going on since the beginning back in, 2019, from COVID all the way through to where we are today. You created your show around issues that matter, issues that are, approaching us and affecting Manitobans and Canadians in a lot of different ways. It's just good to have you on the program tonight and good to have you talking with us on Wednesday at the Ledge. Mike, why don't you take it from here with Carl and kind of have the talk that I think the two of you need to have.
What's your thoughts, Carl, on the 2050 plan coming from Winkler? And are they doing anything in Winkler? Is this 2050 plan hitting Winkler?
Well, I thank you guys, first of all, for having me on. It's an honor to be here and to talk to your audience, Mike, and I love the show that you guys do. And like your show, I'm here to talk about truly the things that matter, the things that are going to affect us at our most intimate core level. And that is that this 2050 plan is a massive disruption to a lifestyle that we've grown accustomed to operate in communities as we have been for hundreds of years and thousands. And the attempt is here to create something that doesn't have a level of importance as to what they think it represents. And the issues at the surface don't appear to be all that impactful, but we do know they have serious consequences in terms of the long-term plan. And Agenda 2050 is really an outcropping, and in the genealogy of Agenda 2050 is Agenda 21, which the UN adopted in 1992. And all of the subsequent agendas have stemmed from Agenda 21. And at the core of Agenda 21 is this rationalization that capitalism is insufficient to meet the needs of our civilization and must be replaced by socialism. That should cause every person in Canada and every other democratically elected country person to just shake in their boots. We are on the verge of turning our wonderful country into a socialist state, Mike. And that, to me, is something that truly matters. That's something that we need to rally around and, as you say, come together and make a stand to let them know this is unacceptable, this is un-Canadian, and we reject it in its entirety.
And not only do we reject it, but we need millions of others to reject it. This is not only hurting us here in Manitoba, it's hurting us everywhere. Edmonton is having a kickback right now, but guess what? A little too late. 15-minute cities are there. People don't like them already. Changes are being made to the infrastructure, to the roads, hurting people big time. And finally, they're going, what is going on in Edmonton? And they're trying to fight back, but it's hard to fight back once they put something in place. And I have a question, Carl, like in the trucking industry, how is it going to hurt us getting our food and trucking in general when they this isn't a 2050 plan, as you know. This is a 2025 plan. Because as soon as they get this approved, they're going to start making changes.
The disruption to the transportation of our goods and services cannot be fully known. There's no way to quantify this except to say that, for example, I run permitted loads. Those loads are strict adherence to roads that I have to travel on. How is that going to be integrated into a system that is already being taxed, where we are being delayed to get permits to enter into certain areas? The ramifications are going to be that there's going to be a massive congestion of loads that will not get delivered on time. And I can't imagine what a 15-minute city will do to the trucking industry. It's absolutely a disaster waiting to happen. And there's no practical means for it. The argument of climate change is insufficient. It does not weigh in the balance. We have to look at this and say, this is an attempt to control people. That's all it is.
You know, the head of the Manitoba Trucking Association or industry was at the Polo Park meeting, and he spoke when the Winnipeg Metropolitan region had their meeting a couple of weeks ago here in Winnipeg. And he got up there for the I guess the pro side of it. He really had a lot of opposition to it based on the fact that there were just so many things that are left unchecked. And they need to get those things checked to be able to sustain themselves moving forward, or goods and services are really going to get messed up, as you mentioned.
And you got to worry, too, about centralization of power.
Yeah.
You know, every little community loses their power, and power centralized in one area. And that's terrible, because if you want to run a town like St. Andrews, for example, East St. Paul, West St. Paul, Headland, whatever the case may be, now you can't do that. Now you have to answer to the main circle of people. And that's going to affect people that live. This is really going to affect people who live on the outskirts of Winnipeg.
I had my mic turned down, and people didn't get a chance to hear what I said there. So it was like, I can't hear Brad.
Just dead air?
I can't hear Brad. Well, it's coming through your mic, so it's a long ways away. I had mentioned that the Winnipeg Metropolitan region a couple of weeks ago had their meeting here in Winnipeg at Polo Park, and while we were there, one of the individuals from the Manitoba Trucking Industry or Association stood up, and while standing up on the pro side of it, meaning he was for things, left with a lot of, or spoke with a lot of questions, and the questions have not been checked. Those boxes need to be checked for them to even be able to support this. So while, I believe that there's a lot of different individuals, whether it's a reeve or a mayor or a councillor or an individual from a private entity like the Manitoba Trucking Industry or the Manitoba Housing Association, they've all got questions, they've all got concerns, no different than the rest of us. We've seen, 6 or 8 now pull out of the 18 different regions, so that's a big thing, and that's a positive thing, isn't it, Mike?
But I think there's a lack of transparency here. A huge lack of transparency where they're hiding behind closed doors. The first 2 meetings that ever took place were during COVID, when people weren't allowed to go out. Yeah, back when Pallister was in power. And a lot of people don't know that. They had meetings, and nobody could come and protest these meetings because you weren't allowed to go out and find out what was going on.
Pallister and Bowman, right?
Pallister and Bowman, exactly. Yeah. And now Bowman just happens to be a federal judge. Things that make you go,
Things that matter.
And this is something a bunch of people shouldn't have to get together and do. This is a vote that should take place. This is our province. We're the people of this province. We vote people in.
That's
and
right.
We should vote for a plan like this to take place. Give us the facts, be transparent, and let the people go vote on Election Day and vote to see if they want something like 2050 to take place in our Manitoba.
Exactly.
You know what concerns me, Mike, is, and you talk about the lack of transparency, the accusations coming from the other side that there are certain people that are spreading misinformation. I want to tell this group, it's not the misinformation, it's the missing information that we're concerned about. It's the ambiguity and all the open doors that are left. If you took 2050 and put it in front of a parliamentary budget committee, they wouldn't know what to do with it. There's no way to calculate the cost of this. And as you said a moment ago, Mike, it's the loss of decision-making, the loss of autonomy at the local level where people have been elected by the people to serve the people, to meet the local needs of the people. That's going to be handed over to a board, and the city of Winnipeg has a veto vote. I fail to understand why one member of that board has a veto vote. So when you go to with anything for an approval, there's always a chance that they'll reject it. I don't see how we can run our municipalities, our towns, and our cities when we don't have effective leadership. And Mike, back to your question about your brother. You talk about the trucking industry impact. There are going to be more trucks sitting because truck drivers are at their breaking point now with the way the controls and the governance of our trucks right now with the cameras in them. They're going to say, I'm not prepared to work at those hours according to 15-minute cities on which I will be able to, to transport my vehicle. They say, I'm not working at those hours. It's going to place so much stress on the system, it's going to break. And that's essentially what the goal is, to have the system implode on itself.
So, okay, now we're going to talk a little bit, something that came into my realm here with Wake Up Canada News over the past 24 hours, which is I received a map of the United States, and it shows this high-speed rail line that's coming in. I think some of you may have seen that post earlier today. That high-speed rail line that they're talking about goes coast to coast, and it branches all across the U.S. The one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't branch up into the U.S. Midwest, which again is where, the wheat fields are and all the crops are growing. And the same thing, it doesn't reach up into Canada, at least not up in the center prairies at all. It doesn't hit Manitoba, Saskatchewan, or Alberta, but it does make its way up into British Columbia. It does make its way up into Ontario. I believe that those are going to be the two escape routes to getting out of our country in the future, and our only way to go south where there's actually warmer temperatures to be able to survive. If they crush the country like I think they're going to do, and they make way for Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum to take over all of our land, which is about this 15-minute city land grab that we're talking about, again, this is about shifting people, not just depopulation, but shifting people to another part of the planet, another part of North America. And it's going to have to be a warmer climate. That's the only way we're going to survive, unless we're all going to turn into Eskimos who have got the knowledge to be able to survive in igloos.
And Brad, there's another thing to this. We are not ready for another 1 million people in Manitoba. Not even near. We can't even handle what we have right now. Exactly. There's veterans on the streets. The food banks are lined up with people that have worked so hard all their lives and can't afford to feed themselves. There's people struggling all over the place. Kids are going to school hungry. We need to take care of what's broken now before we bring more garbage into the city and have a garbage dump that we can't even take care of. And that's what's happening right now. I mean, I see it every day. As a funeral director, I get a different point of view than anyone does. We have the highest suicide rate we've ever seen. I've been a funeral director for 26 years now. The kids of this society have lost hope, completely lost hope. We have a drug problem that's severely out of control. As a matter of fact, they just did a series on crime on CJOB in Global the other day.
Yeah, you were on it.
And I was on it because... This morning. Carl, my own brother got murdered in the city of Winnipeg, and it's heartbreaking to lose a brother to murder. But then you got to blame that on the court system, the catch and release system. We have so many problems right now. Manitoba is probably at its worst it's ever been in all the years that I ever have known. And if this comes on now, it's going to add more. People don't even have a clue how much damage it's going to do. And talk about control. This is 100% control. When we went to the meeting, and I spoke the other day at Canada Inns when I was there, they tried to silence me, and I would have none of that. And I spoke over them, and I said to them, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're trying to take away my freedom of speech. I have 10 minutes to speak, and you won't let me speak for my 10 minutes because you're trying to override me because you don't like what I'm saying. The reality is that what I'm saying is the truth. How are you going to take care of 1 million more people when we can't take care of what we have now?
That's right.
Our city's broken, our province is broken, and we need to do a lot of work. And like I said, this needs to be something we need to vote on. There needs to be a lot of transparency where there's not, and the lies have to go away, because this isn't as pretty as they're making it sound.
The government doesn't run us; we run the government, and that's what needs to be taken back over.
Absolutely.
That's why we're saying people are the power.
That's right.
And the more people we have, and they're going to have if 2 or 3 of us show up, it doesn't matter. If 100 of us show up, it doesn't matter. If thousands of us show up, they have no choice but to notice.
That's exactly what happened in Niverville when everybody showed up there. It went from 200 at Polo Park to 1,000 in Niverville to 1,500 tonight in Brandon. And it's going to keep climbing. People are finding out. We told them. I told the chairman and the executive director, both Jennifer and Michael Moore, we know. We know now. So don't think you're going to get away with this. And don't think we're not going to be there to resist. We know.
And I remember one thing I said to them when I was speaking. I said to them, if people only knew, you would need more than the Canada Inns. You're going to need an arena, because that's how many people are going to show up. And guess what? They're going to need an arena, because when they do this next in Winnipeg or anywhere in Manitoba that we have a chance to be at, there's going to be thousands of people there. And here's the big thing, Carl. And I don't know how frustrated you are about this, but I am. You can't ask a question. I want to ask a question. They won't answer our questions.
No, you have to make statements.
So you're making a statement, but nobody answers your questions. How is that fair?
And in their guidelines, they also have the power to silence your presentation if they feel it in any way has already been heard. And we know that there are going to be repeating themes that are critical, that must be heard again and again, said in different ways, said with different tones and different compassion, and coming from the experience of different people. But what I find so ironic, and this was released in a report, a 2015 report, a recent report of the 1550, I think it's that union that looks after transit drivers, where the number of incidents on transit buses is higher than it's ever been, and yet you want to push people into those places, into those spaces where it's unsafe. You have got to be crazy. You know, when someone proposes something that has never been tested, it is an immediate pause to pump the brakes and say, well, where has this already worked? It has not worked, despite what Freeman has said, that we're building a model. You haven't built anything. The model's been given to you because it's been directed by the UN, and your job is to implement it. And that's where we say no.
A bunch of academics coming up with a bunch of nonsense that's been never tried, tested, or true. And you know what? It's a bunch of nonsense. We've seen that from the Liberals and the NDP for years. Unfortunately, this Manitoba, I don't understand. I lived in Alberta, very conservative province. Even though we were under NDP rule for the years that I was there, they still really ran the province, even though the NDP were in charge. But here in Manitoba, I mean, things aren't getting better. They're getting worse.
I think a lot of things are going to be said on Wednesday. And I'm holding back on some of the things that I want to say because I want to talk about on Wednesday. Otherwise, people go, well, he said it all on Monday. What's the point?
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So we're being really conservative in how we speak tonight because we all want to give a good presentation, pump up the crowd, let them know that we know what we're talking about, let them know that they're now educated, and educate yourself today for peace of mind tomorrow. I always say that.
Can you just scroll back up a little bit? I just want to see. There was a good comment there from...
What, backdoor deals?
No, the one below that, actually. No, just back up a little bit more. Sue Cridlin had a good one there. Truckers should shut down their trucks for a few weeks. Maybe the government would wake up.
Well, I can tell you from the trucker's perspective, there's less than 3-day food on our shelves in our store because on-time delivery and just-in-time deliveries have been a reality for years and years. And I can tell you, I delivered to some of the biggest grocery stores in their distribution centers, and it was critical to the hour when you brought your produce in. But there is less than 3 days. If that were to happen, you truly see the impact. And I really don't want that to come to that. I think we need to have dialogue, and our elected officials need to engage with their elected people, the people that put them in those seats and chairs, and they cannot abdicate their authority. They must not give it away to the WMR. An elected board is not, or an appointed board is totally different from elected people, and we need to support and really rally behind our elected people, because guys, I tell you, they're under pressure. They're under tremendous pressure to adhere to this.
You know,
you've seen the documentation that shows that there's no way to exit. They're not given that. They can be taken to court for failing to comply.
This is going to say it all. This is going to say it all right here. We went through 2 years of COVID. We went without being able to see our moms and our dads, and people died alone. And we had so many catastrophes in this world. There were so many suicides. There were so many people broken. Mental illness is at an all-time high now because of what COVID did. So if you want to let the government have control, that's what control is. What they did during COVID. 2 years of lockdowns, and it continues on. More than likely a war will probably break out or something now, so they could shut everyone up, change the times, digital currency, 15-minute cities, whatever they want to do. So unless we the people make a difference and finally say, enough is enough. We're not taking this anymore. We're just not. We're going to get up. We're going to stand up, and we're going to make noise. Look what happened in Venezuela was a little while ago.
Yeah.
The people stood up.
They took over the palace.
They took over. It shows that people have the power.
They ran the prime minister off. He got into a plane and took off with all of his cash, and he hasn't been back.
And you know what? That's the thing.
But he was a WEF patsy.
Once we all get together and we realize how much power we have in numbers,
right.
And I'm not saying going to war, I'm not saying being violent, I'm saying stand up in numbers and let them know that we're in control, we voted you in, you're going to do what we want you to do because we want a free country. A free country that my parents came to, a country that was full of prosperity, full of love and opportunity. and that's all going away. I don't know about Winkler and places like that, but you drive downtown Winnipeg, and everything is for lease. It's not a town that's booming anymore. It's a town that's falling apart. They can't even take care of Winnipeg, and they want to take care of the surrounding areas. No thanks. I don't want that stuff in my neighborhood.
Some of the...
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And you know what? Speaking to Winkler and communities like Winkler, they are still really safe. But as I have challenged people, I say guard the good deposit. What we have is the building blocks put on building blocks of years of progressive, responsible development of a city, to the point where we have these wonderful communities, and we're not going to surrender it. We must not surrender it to those people that have no vested interest in our communities. This 2050 agenda stems from people that will never live in our country or in our province or in our cities or towns. How can they have say? And that's the agenda that has made its way all the way from the lofty ivory towers of the WEF, people like Klaus Schwab, that have no regard and place no value on human life. We value life in Manitoba. We will stand and we will draw a line and say, you cannot cross this line. And if you do, there are consequences.
And you know what? I agree with you, Carl, because I've been to Winkler and some of the little towns outside Winnipeg, beautifully kept, clean, people friendly, and maybe Winnipeg should learn from towns like that. Even Steinbach, you go to Steinbach, a beautiful, well put together town, beautiful homes, clean, respectful. I was at a red light the other day, and this poor lady beside me, some panhandler, was banging away at her window. This poor lady was terrified. You could see it in her eyes. She was so scared she hit the car in front of her. She hit the car in front of her because she was so afraid. And what are they doing to clean up our city? And what I'm saying is, I live in St. Andrews, and a lot of people live out of town. We live out of town because we want our privacy. We like our yards. We want to have the things we have that we live out of town with. The people that want to live in the city, great. But we could be doing a lot in the city to build upwards, to make it a beautiful city that people want to live in. The problem with the province of Manitoba is you got kids going to school here that become doctors, nurses, lawyers, and guess what they do? They graduate and they leave Manitoba because there's nothing here for them. So you know what? Let's fix a province that's broken. Let's take care of the people that are here first. Let's take care of the people that are homeless, the people that have addictions, the people that have mental health illness. The other day I talked to a mother. This is going to be heartbreaking. She took her son to a hospital twice. And she said, my son needs help. He's going to kill himself. He goes to the hospital and he tells the practitioner nurse that he's going to kill himself. He doesn't want to live anymore. The doctor comes in, he tells the doctor the same thing. And the mom's saying, please help my child. I don't want to lose a child. Please help him. 2 days later, that child died of suicide. We have a system that's broken. And there's no way in the world we need to bring more people in. And I can see the monkeys walking through the room right now because monkeypox is on the way too. That means more lockdowns. That means more devastation. That means putting what we're doing aside because something more important has come along.
We're going to need you to transport 40,000 pounds of bananas up here. So you get on that, Carl. More bananas. We're going to need bananas.
Well, there's strict rules on transporting bananas because I've been to Galveston and picked them up. But, Mike, and you guys, I'd like to brag. I want to raise an important point. In 15-minute cities, in a country, we're living in a democratically elected G7 country. I don't want a 15-minute city. I want a 15-minute ER. Where I can walk in, where a mother can walk in and get immediate help for her child. You go to an ER today and it's abhorrent, the waiting times. I have known people to give up and go home, take a chance, roll the dice. Maybe it's not so serious. Maybe I'll wake up the next morning and maybe I won't. What a place, a G7 country that cannot meet the needs of its people on basic health care. We don't have a 15-minute ER. God knows we don't need a 15-minute city.
I remember walking into Health Science Center the night my brother died. Wow. What a scary emergency room. I'm talking scary emergency.
There's a lot going on, eh?
More security than they had people in the room. 17-hour waits. Total unprofessionalism when it came to talking to our family about my brother's death. You're right. We have a system that's broken in so many different ways.
That's okay. They're giving you
many different ways.
Cleaner air and vibrant local communities.
And you're right. Hey. And you're right about one thing. That's what we should be asking for is 15-minute service anywhere where we go.
That's right.
That's an emergency. Hospitals, vital statistics, whatever the case may be, that we need the government's help, and we don't get it. We just don't get it, and you know what? They just don't care.
And for anyone who thinks that a 15-minute ER is unrealistic, I've traveled almost every interstate in the U.S., and many of the hospitals advertise their current ER times. I have not seen any that are at 15 minutes. They are all less than that, where you can walk in, and they have a guarantee that you will be seen within those minutes that they post. You know, we have a lot to learn, and we can learn. And I believe in the collaboration of well-intentioned men and women who place the value on human life and the services that people need, and stop valuing the climate and the things that don't matter as opposed to the things that matter. And human life is above everything, and the quality of it and the dignity of it right to the final end. Like yourself, Mike, I spoke with a dear friend who was denied access to their mother. In the final moments of her life, she died alone when her family was minutes away, and that family still grieves today. We cannot allow this to happen again, and what happened in COVID, guys, is just a foretaste. It is going to get worse. They want it to make it worse, and in the end, we will be living in a country that we don't recognize. We already live in that country. If someone were to say to me years ago, you know what, Canada one day is going to restrict the flow of bona fide news in its country, I'd say you're crazy. You mean that I can't share a news item in Canada? Welcome to China. That's where we're living. The control of the media is the first thing that you do when you want to take over a country. You control the media.
How about try to get a job in Canada if you're a white person?
You don't even have to be a white person. You can be an immigrant who came here 6 years ago, and you're having trouble getting a job because of all the flood of immigrants that are coming illegally. Remember, the people who came 6, 7 years ago, 8, 10 years ago, they all came and they got in right. They did the immigration process correctly. But we have Justin and others at our provincial and federal levels that are letting them through.
Come on in.
Come on down, just like Joe Biden.
Again, I say take care of what be letting another soul in here. I'm all about immigration. My parents immigrated to Canada in '63. Immigration is a good thing. Too. But the thing is, we can't just let people in all the time. We got to fix what's broken. Let's take care of the people we have here. Let's make sure everyone has a house to live in, has food to eat, and has a healthy hospital that can take care of them. And then when we've done that, we've completed that task, then we can bring more people in again, just like we did back in the 60s and throughout time. But if we went to some other countries and tried to change what they're trying to change in Canada, we'd be shot.
Yeah, well, absolutely we would be.
Straight
no question
out.
About that.
You know what? Come to Canada.
How about a halal mortgage?
I say come to Canada because you love Canada, because Canada is a place for freedom, but Canada is a place for love. Canada is a place that's born on Christian morals.
People came here to get away from tyranny and oppression, and they're here being oppressed again. They just got here, and they're going, what did I come here for? I'm not buying a house here. I'm not buying a car here. I'm taking off. I'm not even staying here.
We need Canadians who want to be Canadians.
When we were on the streets in Ottawa, we asked people repeatedly, and we made it ended up being a joke. Why did you come to Canada? And they said, well, it wasn't for the weather. They came to start. My father immigrated to Canada in 1954 with less money in his pocket, his total pocket, than any one of us would probably have on us on a good day. And he made a life, and he raised a family. He owned a house. He retired, and he had a good life, a better life than he knew he would otherwise have. Today, my father wouldn't recognize this country. I dare say any of our parents that have passed on or our grandparents would not recognize this country that we now call Canada.
And it's too bad because these people that you're talking about, the people that built our streets, the people that immigrated here, the people that worked so hard to make Canada, let's just say Manitoba, we're in Manitoba, make Manitoba a perfect place to live in. Those people are struggling right now, and they can't even live on their old pension they're getting. Yeah, we have Trudeau giving away millions and billions of our dollars to other countries instead of taking care of Canadians first. One thing I have to say is if you're watching the show tonight, we've done it, we've did this episode on purpose. Please like, share and follow the show. Share it as many times as you want so we can get as many people out as we possibly can on Wednesday. I want to be able to see no grass.
Yeah.
Just people.
Amen.
Lots and lots of people. We'll grab people's attention from everywhere. I guarantee you the Winnipeg Sun will be there because the Winnipeg Sun is finally doing some good reporting.
The right journalism.
So
Real
that's journalism at its best.
That's right.
And hopefully we have places there from every media source.
All right.
And they make it news.
Now, do you guys want the update? I've got the final maybe thing that we're going to talk about before we wrap this up tonight. We'll give Carl, go ahead.
Follow up on something that Mike just touched on about the turnout for Wednesday. You've heard us and many others like us speak about what we didn't like about COVID and what we felt was wrong about it and our objections to a mandated medical procedure. But I want to assure you that this is unrelated to that. This issue of 2050 crosses all barriers. This is a nonpartisan reality that we're dealing with. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are. It doesn't matter what choice you made coming through COVID or the pandemic, as you may call it. This affects you at the core level. You, your children, and the future of our children is at stake. This is for all the marbles. Please show up. And one suggestion, carpool. The area around that ledge is hard to park. It's heavily metered. Come with groups. We're trying to organize groups out of Winkler to meet and come together, because more of you coming together is an inspiration to everybody. But don't stay home and think it's somebody else's job. It is our job, all of our jobs.
Hey, we've got you covered if you can't make it, but bottom line is we'd love to have you there. We're going to do our jobs correctly. All right, so wrapping up tonight, I just got off the texting with Pierre, who was in Brandon. Pierre is with Pierre Atala with Action for Canada. He's done a great job of keeping us all educated on a lot of the stuff that's going on here in Manitoba. He's been knowledgeable. He's been accountable. He's been transparent. He's done some really good back and follow-up research with the Plan 2050. You can't say enough about him. He traveled to Brandon tonight. He took it all on himself and went out there with some folks, and they had about 300, is what I'm hearing, who showed up. The overflow room was also filled up, according to his report here. About 150 signatories signed the petition to oppose Brandon's 30-year vision, is what they call it there.
A 30-year vision.
Yep. Councillors seem to appreciate the feedback. They voted against having another hearing at the next meeting. So that stopped the next hearing, and it's going to actually present them with a chance to get together and have a meeting to figure out where they go from there. So there are concerns now. The city planner also stopped the hierarchy at the city level. I pointed out that it stops near the UN, the United Nations, World Economic Forum as well, for that matter. That's about it. Some great speakers tonight. Rhonda was the best speaker, he said.
You know what I think is funny? A lot of people that are sitting on councils and committees all over the place, I don't think they even have a clue of what's going on.
That's right.
And what this 2050 plan is, or
well, they make it all apple
plan.
Pie, happy and rosy, just like Happy Days, but
I got a funny
not.
feeling they didn't think that people would come out like they did and fight against this and actually dig into it and find out what it was. I think they thought, well, we're just going to pass this like we pass everything else. No one's going to know. They're going to wake up tomorrow morning and guess what? Welcome to the 2050 plan. You should have fought it when you had a chance.
Yep.
Right on.
We thank you for joining us today. Carl, thank you for joining us you're in North Dakota right now?
Yeah, I'm in my truck in Fargo, North Dakota, and I wouldn't have missed this for anything.
What technology, Carl's in his truck. You'd never think he's in a truck right now doing a show. But, Carl, thank you for joining us all the way from North Dakota. Hopefully you're not getting charged long-distance charges. And if you are, my friend here will be paying for it.
Send me the bill. Yeah, send me the bill.
But thank you for joining us for a special edition of Ask the Funeral Director. Please join us this Wednesday, 1 o'clock. Tell your friends. Share the show so a lot of people get to hear about it, find out about it, and maybe want to come and see what's going on that day and hear more about it. Thanks, Brad, for having us in your studio. Take care of yourselves, each other. God bless you and your families. Good night.
Good night, everybody.